Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that a billion-dollar supercarrier, right, can be neutralized by a fleet of speedboats and a script of code in less time than it takes to get through your morning commute? Today, you see, we stand on the very precipice of a new era of naval warfare, where the size of your hull no longer dictates the strength of your strike. For decades, the American supercarrier has reigned as the undisputed titan of the high seas, a floating fortress of nuclear power and unmatched geopolitical muscle. It is, quite literally, the ultimate symbol of global hegemony. But in the modern theater of war, the giants, well, they are no longer safe. The world's most powerful military assets are currently being hunted by a ghost. Now, this is not a ghost made of vapor, no, but a strategy, a doctrine so lean, so lethal, and so terrifyingly cost-effective that it has rendered a century of naval tradition obsolete. While the Pentagon pours billions into maintaining these massive steel islands, their adversaries, they have stopped trying to match them ship for ship, you know. Instead, they have mastered the art of the swarm. Imagine 100 small, agile vessels, each no more expensive than a luxury car, closing in from every point on the horizon. They do not fight with honor, right? They fight with math. Intense, they overwhelm sensors, exhaust ammunition, and exploit the tiny digital fractures in a ship's nervous system. Dramatic, while the admiral on the bridge looks for a fleet to fight, he is being dismantled by 1,000 paper cuts. This is the high-stakes reality of the 21st century. We are witnessing the democratization of destruction, where a rogue state or even a well-funded insurgent group can challenge a superpower for the price of a single fighter jet. Urgent, the crisis is looming, and it is more immediate than any of us care to admit. I mean, it's right there. The finality. The U.S. Navy is currently preparing for a war it has already won on paper, but as the tides shift and the shadows lengthen, it is becoming increasingly clear that they may be destined to lose it in the water. To understand the fear stalking the corridors of the Pentagon today, well, ladies and gentlemen, we must first travel back, way back, to the high noon of American naval supremacy. It was April 18, 1988. The Persian Gulf was a powder keg, and you see, the United States was about to strike the match. This was Operation Praying Mantis, the largest surface engagement for the U.S. Navy since the Second World War. In a single 8-hour window, the world watched as a superpower didn't just engage an enemy, it conducted a clinical execution of naval power. The Iranian frigate Sahand thought it could, well, defy the tide. Fast-paced and intense, it fired on American A-6 intruders, only to be met by a swarm of harpoon missiles and laser-guided clusters. Within minutes, the Sahand was an incinerated husk, a tomb of twisted steel sinking into the dark waters of the Gulf. Unrelenting, next came the Sabalan. Firmly, it too was crippled, left a smoldering wreck by the sheer, unadulterated weight of American fire. Grave and final. By sunset, you know, half of Iran's operational fleet had been erased from the map.
For the U.S. Navy, it was a masterclass. It was clean, it was decisive, and it was devastating. But, as the smoke cleared over the Strait of Hormuz, a dangerous illusion took hold in the West. This victory convinced a generation of strategists that high-tech, conventional dominance was the final word in naval warfare. They believed that as long as they had the biggest ships and the longest reach, they were invincible. However, in the halls of Tehran, the lesson learned was far more lethal. The Iranians realized they could never match the American giant in a fair fight. They saw their pride, their heavy steel, and their conventional dreams vanish in a single afternoon. In the burning wreckage of the Sahand and the Sabalan, the seed of a new philosophy was planted. It was the realization that if you cannot kill the giant with a sword, you must drown him in 1,000 stings. This tactical triumph for the United States unknowingly birthed a decades-long revenge plot. It forced the East to abandon the old rules of engagement and embrace the democratization of destruction. While the Pentagon spent billions perfecting the ultimate shield, their adversaries were busy, you see, perfecting a swarm that no shield was ever designed to stop. The ghost of April 18th still haunts the waves because the very dominance displayed that day gave rise to a strategy that is now turning the hunter into the hunted. But you see, the hardware was only the beginning. The true terror lies in how these new tactics are being orchestrated to turn the world's most expensive warships into nothing more than floating targets. Ladies and gentlemen, the ocean is no longer a stage for dueling titans. For decades, the U.S. Navy operated under a doctrine defined by the biggest gun or the longest reach. It was a world of steel against steel, where the mightiest radar and the heaviest broadside dictated exactly who ruled the waves. Ominous. But today, the nightmare keeping U.S. generals awake at night isn't a face-to-face battle against an equal fleet. Gravelly and serious. It is the swarm paradigm, a calculated asymmetric awakening that has turned the very logic of naval dominance on its head. You see, we have shifted from an era where the most powerful weapon wins to a reality where the most targets win. This is the terrifying mathematics of modern attrition. Imagine a billion-dollar Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, a marvel of human engineering, sitting right there in the crosshairs. Its Aegis combat system is the finest shield ever forged, capable of tracking hundreds of threats simultaneously. But, you know, that shield is only as good as the spears it has left in its quiver. Adversaries are no longer trying to outbuild the United States in tonnage, right? Instead, they are utilizing thousands of low-cost suicide drones and stealthy, fast-attack craft to exploit the one fatal flaw in Western naval doctrine, the cost of defense. Consider the brutal ledger of this new war. To protect the lives of the crew and the integrity of the hull, a commander may be forced to fire a RIM 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow. That interceptor costs approximately $2 million. Its target? Fiberglass drone, cobbled together with off-the-shelf components and a lawnmower engine, worth perhaps $20,000.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a global shift where the hunter is being bled dry by the prey. The question isn't whether our high-tech shields work. They do. The question is, how long can they stay up before the magazine runs dry? In a saturation attack, where hundreds of these cheap, lethal gnats swarm from every point of the compass, the math becomes a death sentence. Every successful intercept is a financial and logistical victory for the enemy. They aren't trying to outshoot us, they are simply waiting for us to run out of bullets. But the sheer volume of the swarm is only the first layer of the nightmare, because as the American defenders focus their sensors on the cloud of drones darkening the horizon, they are being led into a trap that is far more sophisticated and far more lethal than simple attrition. The drones are the bait, but the real predator is something the Pentagon never saw coming. Ladies and gentlemen,
We are witnessing the blueprint for the death of a Titan. You see, Operation 2.0 is not a single attack. It is a three-act tragedy designed to disassemble the most powerful projection of force on the planet, the American Carrier Strike Group. This, right here, is the anatomy of a tactical masterstroke executed in 3 lethal phases. The first phase, well, it is what planners call the electronic blindfold. In the opening minutes of the engagement, the American Aegis radar system, the literal eyes and ears of the fleet, is not just attacked, it is smothered. This is a total saturation of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Intense through a combination of high-intensity jamming and surgical cyber warfare, the enemy creates a digital fog so thick that the world's most advanced sensors begin to see ghosts. Communication links fracture, and the seamless data sharing that gives the U.S. Navy its edge begins to flicker and die. The defenders are not just blind, they are isolated. But the darkness, well, it's merely the invitation for the second phase, the swarm gauntlet. As the fleet struggles to reboot its digital vision, the horizon is suddenly choked with hundreds of unconventional maritime assets. We are talking about explosive-laden speedboats, low-cost kamikaze drones, and semi-submersible decoys. This is where the nightmare of target fixation begins. To a computer system designed to neutralize every threat, these hundreds of low-value targets are indistinguishable from a primary assault. The carrier's defensive systems are forced into a frantic mechanical overdrive, burning through millions of dollars in interceptor missiles to kill targets that cost less than a used car. One by one, the vertical launching cells on the escort destroyers go empty. The shield is being depleted round by round until the Titan is left holding an empty gun. Finally, we reach the kinetic conclusion. This is the moment the Pentagon's highest-ranking officials see when they close their eyes. Vivid, with the electronic eyes blinded and the physical interceptors exhausted, the enemy delivers the final blow, a volley of hypersonic cruise missiles. These are the predators that have been waiting in the shadows. They move at speeds that defy conventional reaction times, screaming toward a defenseless, overwhelmed carrier that has been stripped of its digital and physical armor. There is no more jamming, no more decoys, and no more bullets left to fire. There is only the impact.
This 3-phase sequence is the precise mechanism designed to turn the pride of the American Navy into the world's largest artificial reef. However, as terrifying as this tactical sequence appears on paper, there is one critical factor the enemy has calculated into this plan. A psychological vulnerability buried deep within the American command structure that could make the entire 2.0 strategy unavoidable. Ladies and gentlemen, the era of the invulnerable Leviathan is over. You see, in the modern theater of war, we are witnessing a terrifying inversion of power, where the smallest player on the board now holds the capability to checkmate the king. It is perhaps the greatest irony of the 21st century that the West's most impressive technological strengths, its massive interconnected platforms and billion-dollar sensors, have actually become its most significant vulnerabilities. The American Carrier Strike Group was designed to project absolute power to every single corner of the globe. But in this new landscape, you know that very scale creates a target too large to miss and far too expensive to lose. While the West builds masterpieces of engineering, its adversaries are mass-producing the tools of disruption.
When a $1 million drone swarm can threaten a $13 billion ship, well, the math of war simply ceases to favor the Titan. As the sun sets on the age of traditional naval supremacy, we must face the reality that the ocean is no longer a sanctuary. In the whispers with intensity, this realization is what truly haunts the halls of the Pentagon. It is the fear that in the next great conflict, the very tools meant to ensure victory will be the chains that pull the giant beneath the waves. The board has changed. The old doctrines are being rewritten right now in the spray of the Persian Gulf and the deep waters of the Pacific. We are standing at the threshold of a new era of combat, where the winner isn't the one with the biggest ship, but the one with the most innovative spirit. The question remains, is the West actually prepared for a war where its strength is its greatest weakness? The tide is coming in, and the world is watching to see who moves next. If you value these deep dives into the strategies and secrets shaping our world, ensure you are subscribed to Global War Insights. We will continue to track the evolution of global conflict as the pieces move across the board. Thank you for your time today, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you on the next front line.